Have you ever been judged the second you walked into a room? Before you even had a chance to speak, someone sized you up and decided you didn't belong. If you know that feeling, that sting of prejudice, then hit that subscribe button and like this video right now, because you are about to witness a story of humiliation transformed into the most epic reckoning you have ever seen. Hey, you're lost. The welfare office is 3 blocks south of here. The words, slick with unearned superiority, cut through the hallowed silence of Sterling Legacy Bank's downtown Chicago lobby. Kyle Peterson, a teller whose smirk was a permanent fixture on his face, looked up from his polished counter. His eyes, the color of faded denim, raked over the woman approaching him. He saw a black woman. He saw a designer suit that, in his mind, had to be a knockoff. He saw an easy target. Amara Vance felt the air leave her lungs, a sudden, sharp vacuum. It was 12:15 p.m. on a crisp October Tuesday. The lunchtime crowd, a mix of corporate suits and hurried shoppers, paused. Heads turned. Phones, almost by instinct, began to rise from pockets and purses. Kyle's smirk widened. He was the center of attention, the brave guardian of financial purity. He raised his voice, a deliberate projecting tone meant for the entire marble and glass cathedral of commerce. "This is a private financial institution, ma'am, not a handout center," he continued, his gaze dripping with disdain. "We get your type in here all the time, trying to cash some fake government check or pull some other kind of scam." He gestured dismissively towards the heavy bronze doors. A flick of his wrist meant to shoo away an animal. "The ATM is outside. I'm sure it takes your EBT card." The lobby fell into a deep, uncomfortable quiet. The only sounds were the soft, almost imperceptible clicks of phone cameras beginning to record. Have you ever felt the weight of 100 eyes on you, each one passing a silent, damning judgment? A digital clock on the wall glowed. 12:17 p.m. Nearby, a brass placard announced an executive board meeting at 1:30 p.m. Chloe Anguyen, a freelance journalist who had been waiting to deposit a check, felt a familiar surge of adrenaline and outrage. She discreetly angled her phone, the red live icon blinking to life on her screen. A notification popped up for her followers. "Discrimination in action. Sterling Legacy Bank, downtown Chicago, happening now." Amara placed her withdrawal slip on the cool marble counter. Her movements were a study in deliberate calm, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. "I would like to withdraw $50,000 from my account, please." Kyle let out a bark of laughter, sharp and ugly. $50,000? Lady, are you for real? That's more than my yearly salary. What kind of hustle are you running? He snatched the slip, his fingers crinkling the paper. He didn't even look at the account number. "Let me guess, you're a business owner, right? An entrepreneur? That's the one I always hear." The morning rush was over, but the remaining customers were now a captive audience. A woman in pearls whispered to her husband, "They should call security. This is making me nervous." An older black man in a porter's uniform, waiting by the elevators, simply shook his head, his face a mask of weary disgust. Karen Miller, the branch supervisor, emerged from her glass-walled office. Her heels clicked with an aggressive authority on the polished floor. She was a woman who saw problems not as human situations, but as operational risks to be neutralized. Her body language immediately created a united front with her teller. "What's the problem here, Kyle?" she asked, though her eyes were already locked on Amara with suspicion. "This individual is attempting a highly suspicious withdrawal," Kyle announced, his voice puffed with self-importance. $50,000. Claims she has an account with us." Karen's eyebrows shot up in a performance of dramatic disbelief. "That does seem highly irregular. Ma'am, for a transaction of this size, I'm going to need to see 2 forms of government-issued ID, a recent utility bill, and we will absolutely need to verify your employment." Amara reached into her custom leather purse and retrieved her driver's license and a heavy platinum bank card. The card, bearing the distinctive sterling legacy eagle, caught the light from the crystal chandeliers. Her name, Amara Vance, was embossed in sharp silver letters. Kyle barely gave them a glance. "Anyone can get a fake ID off the internet these days. The really good ones even have the right logos." He held up the platinum card as if it were a piece of contaminated evidence. "These counterfeits are getting more sophisticated every month. It's my job to protect the bank's assets." Chloe's livestream viewer count was climbing. 950 viewers, 1,200. The comment section was a torrent of fury. "This is disgusting. What year is this? Someone get her badge number." Chloe held her phone steady, her lens capturing every condescending word, every dismissive gesture, every nuance of the institutional rot on display. "I have been a client of this bank for over 8 years, Amara said, her voice a marvel of professional composure, though a tremor of pure rage vibrated deep within her. "My account number is clearly visible on both my identification and the card itself." Karen stepped closer to the counter, physically reinforcing the barrier between Amara and her own money. "Ma'am, we have very strict protocols for high-dollar transactions, especially from certain types of accounts. These procedures are in place to protect the bank and our legitimate customers from fraudulent activity." The phrase hung in the air, thick and poisonous. Certain types of accounts. Everyone in that lobby knew exactly what she meant. Chloe's phone captured the shared, knowing look between Karen and Kyle, the subtle way they positioned their bodies to intimidate, the casual, practiced cruelty of their prejudice. A security guard emerged from a back office. Marcus Jones. A 10-year veteran of the bank, his face was a landscape of discomfort. He recognized the pattern. He'd seen it play out 100 times, though never with this much public attention. His presence was meant as a final, silent threat, but his eyes, when they briefly met Amara's, held a flicker of apology. "Marcus, we may require your assistance here," Karen announced, her voice ringing out for the entire lobby. "We have a potential fraud situation." Amara's phone vibrated in her purse. A calendar alert, 2:30 p.m., conference call with the Federal Reserve. She silenced it without looking, but the small, elegant motion was not lost on the growing audience. "Look, lady," Kyle said, leaning back, the picture of theatrical exhaustion. "I deal with your kind every single day. You come in here with your sob stories, your fake papers, trying to smooth talk your way into a quick payday. It's not happening. Not on my watch." He waved a hand around at the opulent surroundings. "This is Sterling Legacy Bank. We serve serious people with serious money." A young man in a trader's vest, standing behind Chloe, muttered, "For God's sake, just check the account number and give her the money." But another customer, a middle-aged woman with a tight perm, nodded in agreement with Kyle. "You can't be too careful these days." "We are going to need to verify your source of funds," Karen continued, pulling out a thick manila folder filled with forms. "We'll need income verification, tax returns from the last 3 years, and a notarized letter detailing the exact purpose of this withdrawal." Amara's black leather portfolio rested on the counter, untouched. Inside lay documents that could shatter the very foundation of this bank, contracts that could reshape the entire financial industry. But in their eyes, she was nothing. They saw only the color of her skin, and from that, they had constructed an entire fiction of criminality and poverty. "The system is showing some irregularities with this account," Kyle lied smoothly, tapping at his keyboard with theatrical focus. "Multiple red flags. It's triggering our enhanced verification procedures." Chloe's live stream hit 2,500 viewers. The hashtag #TalkYourBankingWhileBlack was starting to gain traction, organically spreading across social media platforms. Screenshots of Kyle's sneering face were already becoming memes on Twitter. Executive board meeting in 45 minutes. A disembodied voice announced over the intercom. All department heads, please report to the main conference room by 1:20 p.m. The countdown added a new layer of pressure. Karen glanced at her watch, a flicker of anxiety crossing her face. She had reports to prepare for that meeting, but this situation demanded her full, biased attention. "Ma'am, I am going to have to ask you to step over to the waiting area," Karen said, pointing to a set of hard plastic chairs near the security desk. This verification could take a considerable amount of time. The suggestion was another calculated humiliation, designed to isolate her, to make her wait like a common suspect while real customers were served. Marcus shifted his weight, his discomfort palpable. He recognized the psychological game, but his job, his mortgage, his daughter's tuition, they all depended on him following Karen's lead. Chloe's phone showed 3,000 viewers. Comments were pouring in now from people who recognized this wasn't just a rude teller. It was a systemic failure they had experienced themselves. The story was breaking free of the bank's marble walls, building a digital momentum that would soon be unstoppable. But none of them, not the bankers, not the crowd, not even the global audience watching online, had any idea what was about to happen next. They had poked a sleeping giant, and they were about to be consumed by the storm. What would you have done in Amara's position? Would you have stayed calm, or would you have unleashed the fury they so clearly deserved? Let me know your honest answer in the comments below. The story is about to take a turn you will not believe. Executive board meeting in 30 minutes. All managers to conference room for prep, the intercom crackled. Chloe's livestream had surged past 4,000 viewers. Local news affiliates were starting to message her, asking for permission to use her feed. The doors to the executive elevator hissed open, and Richard Sterling, the regional manager, burst into the lobby. His expensive suit, hurried stride, and air of frantic importance immediately seized control of the scene. Someone had clearly called him, warning him of a fire that needed to be put out. "What in God's name is going on here?" he demanded, his voice accustomed to instant obedience. His eyes took in the scene in a flash. Black woman at the counter, a crowd of gawking customers, and far too many phones pointing in his direction. Karen rushed to his side, speaking in a conspiratorial whisper designed to be heard by everyone while excluding Amara. "Potential fraud, Richard. A massive withdrawal request, 50,000. The documentation is highly suspicious. Kyle's system flagged multiple irregularities." Richard nodded grimly, his face shifting into full-blown crisis management mode. He'd handled these situations before, or so he thought. "Ma'am," he announced, turning to Amara, his voice a formal, condescending boom. "I am Richard Sterling, Regional Manager for Sterling Legacy. I understand there has been some confusion regarding our security and account verification procedures." Amara remained perfectly still, a beacon of calm in the swirling chaos. But Chloe's camera, zoomed in, caught the subtle tightening of the muscles around her eyes. "There is no confusion, Mr. Sterling. I am attempting to withdraw funds from my own account." "These elaborate schemes are becoming more and more common," Richard continued, playing to the crowd. "Identity theft, document forgery, social engineering, the criminals are getting incredibly sophisticated." He was creating a narrative, painting Amara as a potential predator and his staff as valiant protectors. Marcus Jones stood nearby, his uniform making him an unwilling participant in what was now a full-blown, racially charged interrogation. His discomfort was so obvious it was almost painful to watch. "Sir, perhaps we should move this to a private office," he suggested quietly, a desperate attempt to de-escalate the public spectacle. "No, Officer Jones," Richard replied firmly, patting him on the shoulder in a show of false camaraderie. Transparency is paramount in potential fraud investigations. It's important that our other customers see how seriously we take their security. The comment section on Chloe's live stream exploded. Transparency? You mean public humiliation? This is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Somebody call the NACP now. Her viewer count rocketed past 6,000. Shares were multiplying exponentially. An elderly woman, clearly annoyed by the delay, stepped forward. "Excuse me, I have a wire transfer to make before you close for lunch." "Ma'am, we're handling a serious security matter," Kyle said, puffing out his chest. "This person is attempting to withdraw a very large sum of money with highly questionable documentation." The woman looked Amara up and down with open suspicion. "Well, I suppose you have to be careful. You read about these things all the time." But another voice, sharp and clear, cut through the tension. It was a young black man from the loan department. "This is insane. She has a valid ID and a platinum bank card. What more proof do you need?" "Sir, this does not concern you. Please do not interfere with official bank security procedures," Karen snapped, her authority fraying at the edges. The lobby was now a microcosm of society, split into factions. Those who saw a threat and supported the bank's vigilance, and those who saw blatant, undeniable discrimination. Chloe's phone was a silent, objective witness, capturing every glance, every whisper, every moment of the institutional machine grinding down on a single individual. "I will require additional documentation," Richard announced, producing a thick packet of forms as if from thin air. "I'll need to see your employment contract, your last 2 years of tax returns, proof of your income source, and a detailed, signed affidavit explaining the precise purpose of this withdrawal." Amara's phone buzzed again, insistently this time. A text from her executive assistant. "Board members are gathering, asking about the Federal Reserve call." Another from her lead attorney. "Chloe's live stream is going viral. Say the word and I will intervene." She ignored them both, her composure an unbreakable shield against the escalating humiliation. "This is standard procedure for any unpatterned, large cash withdrawal," Richard lied, though everyone in that room who had ever taken out a business loan or a down payment knew it wasn't. "We are simply protecting the bank and the legitimate account holder from potential fraud. Executive board meeting in 20 minutes, the intercom announced again. Final preparation phase. The time pressure was mounting. Karen kept glancing at her watch. She was supposed to be presenting the quarterly performance report to the board, but this situation was spiraling far beyond her control. "And ma'am," Richard added, delivering what he thought was the final, unanswerable challenge. "We will also need to contact your employer directly to verify your identity. What is the name of the company you work for?" The question was heavy with assumption. In his small, prejudiced world, a woman like Amara was either unemployed or worked some low-wage job. The possibility that she could be legitimately wealthy, let alone powerful, was an idea so foreign it simply did not exist in his consciousness. "I'm self-employed," Amara replied, her voice even and calm. Kyle let out a snort of derisive laughter. "Self-employed? Oh, that's a classic. Let me guess, you run a consulting business from your apartment, an online boutique, something with no verifiable income." Chloe's live audience had swelled to over 8,000 viewers. National news organizations were now embedding her feed on their websites. The hashtag #CornSterlingLegacyShame was trending nationwide, with thousands of people sharing their own stories of similar treatment at other banks. Marcus approached Amara, his reluctance a heavy cloak. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you for any additional identification you might have. A passport, a social security card, any business registration documents." His tone was apologetic, but his orders were clear. Amara handed over the documents without a word, knowing that any resistance would only be used against her. "Marcus, run these through the Federal Fraud Detection Database. Richard instructed. Cross-reference everything. Check for any red flags, any suspicious activity, any aliases. The fraud detection database was, in reality, just Richard's way of stalling for time while he tried to figure out how to manage the optics of the growing crowd and their ever-present recording devices. A group of young professionals entered the bank, their attention immediately drawn to the standoff at the counter. One of them, a sharp-eyed black woman in her 30s, instantly grasped the situation and began her own recording. "Are you kidding me?" she challenged loudly. "Are you seriously harassing this woman for trying to access her own money? This is 2025, not 1955. "Ma'am, please step back. This is an official bank security matter," Karen retorted, her face flushed with anger. "Then show me the official policy," the woman demanded. "Show me the written rule that says you can subject her to this level of interrogation. I've withdrawn more than that from this very branch and never been asked for my tax returns." The lie was exposed. The hypocrisy was laid bare for all to see. Other customers were making transactions, cashing checks, moving thousands of dollars without a second glance, while Amara was being treated like a criminal for the exact same act. Executive board meeting in 15 minutes. All department heads to the conference room immediately. Richard's walkie-talkie crackled. "Mr. Sterling, corporate security is on the line. They need to speak with you urgently about a viral live stream incident." The beast was stirring. The corporate headquarters had noticed. Lawyers were being scrambled. Crisis protocols were being activated. But it was already too late. The damage was done, and the fallout was just beginning. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to wait while we complete our verification," Richard announced, his voice taking on a hard, threatening edge. This process could take several hours. The threat was clear. Submit to our indefinite detention and humiliation, or walk away without your money. But Amara's calm, regal expression never wavered. Even as the entire weight of the institution, its rules, its guards, and its prejudices pressed down on her, she stood unbowed. Marcus looked away, unable to meet her gaze. He knew this was wrong, deeply and fundamentally wrong, but his paycheck depended on him being a part of it. Chloe's live stream hit 13,000 viewers. Comments were now flooding in from civil rights attorneys offering pro bono services, from financial industry insiders condemning the bank's actions, and from journalists recognizing the historic significance of what they were witnessing. The stage was set. The players were in position. The world was watching, and something was about to break. Executive board meeting in 10 minutes. All managers report immediately. The announcement, crisp and impersonal, seemed to be the signal Amara Vance had been waiting for. For the first time, she slowly, deliberately, reached down and unlatched her black leather portfolio. The soft click echoed in the silent lobby. The entire crowd, both in the bank and online, seemed to lean forward in collective anticipation. A palpable shift occurred in the atmosphere, a change in the electric charge of the air. Chloe's livestream had exploded to 16,000 viewers. Notifications were flooding her screen as major news outlets began running with the story in real time. The comment feed was a waterfall of text, moving too fast for the human eye to process. "Something is about to go down. She's way too calm. This woman is playing chess while they're playing checkers. The boss is about to enter the game." From the portfolio, Amara withdrew a single heavy business card. The cardstock was thick, the edges crisp. Its embossed silver lettering caught the light from the crystal chandeliers overhead. She placed it gently on the marble counter in front of Kyle Peterson. He glanced down at it, his face a mask of contempt. "Amara Vance, President and CEO, Vance Capital Holdings," he read aloud, his voice dripping with mocking skepticism. "Oh, wow. Another one of these. A fake CEO. They print these things online for $5 a hundred." But Richard Sterling stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he squinted at the card. Something about it, the specific weight of the paper, the precise font of the V in Vance, was triggering a deeply buried memory from a high-level corporate briefing. The name, Vance Capital Holdings, was stirring a vague but terrifying sense of recognition. Vance Capital Holdings, Richard repeated slowly, the name working its way through his consciousness like a deadly virus invading a computer system. Amara then produced a second card, placing it next to the first. This one bore the familiar Sterling Legacy Bank Eagle logo, but underneath, in small, dense print, was a string of legal text. Board of Directors, Preferred Shareholder, Series A, Majority Voting Rights, Voting. The color drained from Richard Sterling's face. It was as if someone had pulled a plug at the base of his neck, letting all the blood rush out of his head. His hands, which had been so steady and authoritative just moments before, began to tremble as he picked up the card. He read the text, then read it again, as if hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something less catastrophic. You're on the board?" he stammered, his voice a choked, pathetic whisper. "I don't just sit on the board, Mr. Sterling," Amara replied. Her voice had changed. The quiet, professional tone was gone, replaced by a new quality, a cold, hard, executive authority that made every single person in that lobby, including Marcus the security guard, stand up a little straighter. "Vance Capital Holdings owns 31% of Sterling Legacy Corporation. We are the largest single shareholder." The words landed with the force of a physical blow. The air in the lobby seemed to crackle. Kyle Peterson's jaw dropped, the CEO's business card fluttering from his numb fingers to the floor. Karen Miller took an involuntary step back from the counter as if it had become electrified. Chloe's livestream feed went berserk. The viewer count leaped from 16,000 to 30,000 in less than a minute. The comments were a blur of pure shock. "Oh my God! She owns the bank!" "The plot twist of the century. This is the greatest thing I have ever seen." News organizations worldwide were now embedding her feed directly into their breaking news coverage. Marcus Jones just shook his head slowly, a look of dawning, horrified recognition on his face. He'd seen her face before, in the glossy pages of the annual report, in corporate newsletters announcing new board members. The woman they had been systematically humiliating, harassing, and threatening for the better part of an hour was, for all intents and purposes, their ultimate boss. "Vance Capital Holdings," Amara continued, opening her portfolio wider to reveal stacks of documents bound with official-looking covers that made Kyle's eyes widen in terror. "Acquired our controlling interest 8 months ago. Today's executive meeting," she gestured toward the conference room where anxious managers were now gathering, "is my quarterly performance review of this institution." A wave of stunned, absolute silence washed over the lobby. The customers who had been watching a simple act of discrimination were now unwitting witnesses to a corporate coup. Chloe's phone was capturing every slack-jawed expression, every moment of dawning horror, every single second of what was about to become the most expensive and catastrophic customer service failure in the history of modern banking. "And on the agenda for today's meeting," Amara explained, pulling out a thick folder marked "Confidential Board Review," "is a full assessment of the customer experience." She looked directly at Kyle, who now looked like he was genuinely struggling to breathe. "Today's interaction, gentlemen, was a live, unannounced stress test of your frontline customer service and discrimination protocols. And I have to say, you have provided us with some truly exceptional data for our analysis." The elderly couple who had supported Kyle's vigilance exchanged horrified glances. The businessman who had muttered about security was frantically trying to delete his social media posts about the incident. Even the emotionless security cameras seemed to be staring down with mechanical judgment. Richard Sterling fumbled for his walkie-talkie. All managers, conference room, now, code red, this is not a drill. But the damage was done. The bomb had detonated. Chloe's live stream had become a global phenomenon. The hashtag #JewBankOwnerReveal was trending worldwide. The assistant to the bank's president, Arthur Blackwood, appeared at the elevator doors, her face ashen. She'd been monitoring social media from the top floor and understood the apocalyptic scale of what was unfolding. The Federal Banking Commission was formally notified of this incident 12 minutes ago, Amara continued, consulting her phone as if reading a grocery list. Our compliance department has standing orders to report all potential discrimination events in real time. She turned her screen to show a list of official government contacts. Senator Warren's office is currently monitoring Chloe's live stream. The House Financial Services Committee has also been formally notified. Kyle Peterson's face was the color of old paper. He was just a teller. He had never imagined his daily, casual racism could attract the attention of the United States Congress. His training had been about spotting fake checks, not about the legal and financial consequences of systemic bias. Ms. Vance, Richard began, his corporate training fighting a losing battle with the sheer magnitude of his blunder. I want to profoundly apologize for this misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Mr. Sterling, Amara cut in, her executive presence now absolute and undeniable. This was a textbook case of systemic discrimination, captured live on dozens of recording devices. What you are all witnessing is the precise reason why Vance Capital Holdings mandates comprehensive bias training for all of its portfolio companies. She retrieved another document. Violations of the Federal Equal Credit Opportunity Act carry financial penalties of up to $500,000 per incident. The Community Reinvestment Act requires that banks serve all members of their community equally, regardless of race. The legal citations rolled off her tongue. Before founding one of the most powerful investment firms in the world, Amara Vance had been a top corporate attorney. She knew banking law better than the regulators who wrote it. Our legal department specializes in federal banking compliance, she continued, pulling out her phone to show a contact list that included former Treasury secretaries, federal judges, and key congressional staffers. 23 of our top attorneys are currently analyzing Chloe's live stream footage for potential civil and criminal violations. Chloe's viewer count had crested 40,000. The story was now the lead item on CNN, MSNBC, and even international outlets like the BBC. Banking industry publications were scrambling to understand the fallout. Kyle Mitchell finally found his voice, though it was cracked and desperate. Ms. Vance, I was just following security protocols. I didn't know. This has all been a terrible, terrible mistake. Show me the protocol, Amara challenged, her voice like steel. Show me the page in your training manual that authorizes racial profiling. Point to the chapter that instructs you to assume a black customer is committing fraud until they can prove themselves innocent. The challenge hung in the air, unanswered. Kyle's mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no sound came out. His entire career, his entire worldview had just been rendered worthless. Karen Martinez tried to run interference. Ma'am, surely we can resolve this matter internally, through the proper channels. This matter became external 45 minutes ago, Ms. Miller, when you and your staff threatened a shareholder of this bank with federal prosecution, Amara replied coolly. Chloe's live stream has documented everything for the regulatory review. She opened another app on her phone, this one showing real-time stock market data. Sterling Legacy Corporation shares have already dropped 4.2% in after-hours trading. As of this moment, that represents a loss of approximately $340 million in market capitalization. The numbers were immediate and brutal. Social media sentiment analysis showed an 89% negative rating for all hashtags associated with the bank. Vance Capital Holdings' entire investment philosophy is built on environmental, social and governance compliance, Amara explained, as if lecturing a class of business students. Today's incident represents a material breach of our partnership agreement with this corporation. She consulted another document, this one marked Confidential, Divestiture Protocols. Our board has pre-approved the immediate liquidation of our assets if clear and documented patterns of discrimination are found. This live stream provides that documentation. A shocked murmur went through the lobby. Marcus Jones approached her carefully, his security training warring with his human decency. Ms. Vance, on behalf of myself, I want to apologize for my part in this. I should have done more. Officer Jones, Amara interrupted, her tone softening for the first time. You were placed in an impossible position by your superiors. Your discomfort was a sign of your professional integrity, and that integrity has been noted. It will be remembered. The look of profound relief on Marcus's face was captured for the world to see. The bank's president, Arthur Blackwood, burst through the elevator doors, his normally immaculate silver hair disheveled. His assistant had tried to brief him on the ride down, but the reality was so much worse. Ms. Vance, Blackwood began, striding past his disgraced managers. I want to personally assure you that this abhorrent incident does not represent the values of Sterling Legacy Bank. Mr. Blackwood, Amara replied, not missing a beat. This incident represents exactly what my team has been documenting across your entire portfolio for months. Systemic bias in customer service, woefully inadequate training protocols, and a management culture that enables discrimination instead of actively preventing it. She slid the final document across the counter. It was a comprehensive audit report that made Blackwood's face go pale. Our quarterly assessment identified 47 distinct discrimination complaints filed against Sterling Legacy branches in the last 6 months. 78% of them involved customers of color. The data, Mr. Blackwood, is irrefutable. The customers in the lobby began to applaud. It started with a few scattered claps, then grew into a thunderous ovation. They were cheering for more than just a corporate takedown. They were celebrating a moment of profound, undeniable accountability. Amara stood to her full height, her entire bearing transformed. She was no longer a potential victim. She was the embodiment of executive authority. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's customer service assessment, she announced. Then she turned her gaze to the bank president. Mr. Blackwood, shall we now head up to your boardroom to discuss the immediate and sweeping changes your institution will be implementing? Kyle Peterson, Karen Miller, and Richard Sterling stood frozen, like pathetic exhibits in a museum of corporate failure. Their careers were over. But for Sterling Legacy Bank, and for the entire banking industry, the reckoning was just beginning. Arthur Blackwood stood amidst the wreckage of his bank's reputation, a general surveying a battlefield after a swift and devastating defeat. His nearly 3 decades in banking had prepared him for market crashes, hostile takeovers, and regulatory audits, but nothing had prepared him for this, a complete and public obliteration of institutional authority, broadcast live to millions. Ms. Vance, he began, his voice a carefully controlled instrument of damage control, I want to personally oversee our response to this unprecedented situation. Amara remained at the teller counter, which she had transformed into her command center. Her open briefcase displayed the financial weaponry that had brought the institution to its knees. Mr. Blackwood, unprecedented situations require unprecedented solutions, she replied, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. Let's begin with the data that brought us to this moment. She held up her tablet, displaying real-time analytics that made Blackwood flinch. Vance Capital Holdings tracks customer satisfaction and social responsibility metrics across all our portfolio companies. As of this morning, Sterling Legacy Corporation ranked dead last in our financial services division, our comprehensive audit, She tapped the thick folder on the counter. Shows a clear and disturbing pattern. 47 formal discrimination complaints in 6 months, 78% from customers of color, 63% occurring at branches, like this one, where management has demonstrated a culture of bias. Chloe's live stream, which she had finally ended, had peaked at over 60,000 concurrent viewers. The clips were now being analyzed on every major news network. The banking world was watching its own grisly autopsy unfold in real time. The financial fallout, Amara continued, switching her screen to show after-hours trading data, extends far beyond a temporary dip in stock price. Our 31% ownership gives Vance Capital Holdings significant influence over corporate governance, board composition, and, of course, executive compensation. Blackwood pulled out his own tablet, but the crisis management checklists seemed laughably inadequate. Ms. Vance, Amara, what immediate actions would demonstrate our sincere commitment to rectifying these systemic failures? Accountability begins at the source, Amara stated, gesturing with her pen towards the 3 disgraced employees. Mr. Peterson will be terminated, effective immediately, for gross misconduct and violation of federal anti-discrimination laws. Ms. Miller will be dismissed for supervisory negligence and fostering a discriminatory environment. And Mr. Sterling's position as regional manager is untenable. His record across multiple branches shows a pattern of ignoring or enabling such behavior. Richard Chen's face went ashen. A dismissal for cause, linked to systemic discrimination, was a death sentence in the banking industry. He would never hold a senior position again. Furthermore, Amara continued, her legal training evident in her precise language, the Community Reinvestment Act requires you to serve all segments of the community. Today's incident, combined with our audit data, constitutes what federal regulators define as a pattern and practice violation. This exposes the bank to severe penalties, including a potential revocation of your banking charter. Blackwood's phone was vibrating non-stop with calls from his legal team, from panicked board members, and from the federal regulators themselves. The legal and financial exposure was mounting with every passing second. Vance Capital Holdings maintains active relationships with institutional investors who collectively manage over $2.3 trillion in assets, Amara explained, showing him her contact screen, where the logos for BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street were prominently displayed. They are all watching your response right now as a test case for ESG compliance. They want to know if you are a responsible partner or a toxic asset. The threat was clear and devastating. If those giants followed Vance's lead and divested, the resulting stock collapse would be catastrophic. Our compliance department submitted preliminary notifications to the FDIC, the OCC, and the Federal Reserve 40 minutes ago, she added, delivering another body blow. Arthur Blackwood finally understood the full scope of the crisis. He wasn't just managing a PR disaster. He was fighting for the very survival of his institution. He looked at the chaos, at the disgraced employees, and then at Marcus Jones, the security guard whose integrity had shone through the mess. The path forward requires specific, measurable, and non-negotiable actions, Amara announced, consulting what was clearly a pre-written ultimatum. Sterling Legacy Corporation has 24 hours to publicly agree to the following terms. She laid out the points with the precision of a surgeon. 1. Immediate termination of all employees involved, with a full public disclosure of the findings of your internal investigation. 2. A mandatory 60-hour bias and sensitivity training program for every single customer-facing employee to be completed within 90 days. This will be designed and implemented by an outside firm of our choosing. Estimated cost, $15 million. 3. The development and implementation of a real-time discrimination monitoring system using AI to analyze customer interactions and flag potential bias incidents for immediate review. Estimated cost, $50 million. 4. The creation of a new independent civil rights ombudsman position, reporting directly to the board of directors. This office will have the authority to investigate any and all discrimination complaints and the power to terminate any employee, up to and including the executive level. 5. The establishment of a $30 million community reinvestment fund dedicated to providing low-interest loans and financial literacy programs to the minority-owned businesses and underserved communities you have so clearly failed. The numbers were staggering, but the alternative, regulatory shutdown, class action lawsuits, and total investor flight, would cost billions. Our timeline is absolute, Amara concluded. The Vance Capital Holdings Board meets tomorrow morning to review your official response. Full acceptance of these terms will mean our continued partnership and a path toward rebuilding. Anything less will trigger the immediate and total divestiture of our $1.2 billion position. Kyle Peterson, his face streaked with tears, finally broke. Ms. Vance, please, I have a family, a mortgage. I was just doing my job, following the bank's policies. Show me the policy, Amara challenged him again, her voice quiet but unyielding. Show me the written rule that told you to treat a black customer like a criminal. There was no answer. There never could be. We believe in rehabilitation over ruin, Mr. Blackwood, Amara said, her tone shifting slightly, offering a sliver of hope. We are prepared to work with Sterling Legacy to implement a comprehensive reform that could become the new gold standard for the entire industry. She began packing her briefcase, her movements methodical, her point made. However, this cooperation requires genuine, painful, and public accountability, not cosmetic changes designed to make the lawyers happy. The quiet ultimatum held more power than any threat could. Economic leverage was enforcing social justice more effectively than decades of protests ever had. Arthur Blackwood knew that his next 24 hours would determine whether Sterling Legacy Bank survived, or if it would become a permanent cautionary tale taught in every business school in America. 24 hours later, a humbled Arthur Blackwood stood before a global press conference. Sterling Legacy Bank accepts full responsibility, he announced, his voice steady. We failed, and we are committed to fundamental, lasting change. The Thompson Standards, as the media dubbed them, were implemented immediately. The $67 million first-year cost was approved unanimously by the board. Brad Mitchell and Susan Martinez were fired, their names becoming bywords for corporate bigotry. David Chen's resignation was accepted, triggering a wave of investigations into his entire region. And Jerome Washington? He stood beside Blackwood at the press conference, wearing a new suit and a new title, Executive Director of Compliance and Customer Advocacy. His promotion sent a powerful message. Integrity would be rewarded as surely as bigotry would be punished. Maya Patel was hired as the bank's new Director of Transparent Communications, her citizen journalism having proven more effective than any corporate PR firm. The AI monitoring system she helped design went live within 6 months. The $25 million community fund, administered by a board of local leaders, began revitalizing underserved neighborhoods, turning a moment of ugly discrimination into a legacy of opportunity. 1 year later, Amara Vance addressed the Global Banking Equality Summit. Banking discrimination complaints were down 52% across the country as other institutions scrambled to adopt similar reforms. Minority business lending had surged. Dignity is not a negotiable asset in the modern economy, she told the international delegates. When we make discrimination expensive, we make inclusion profitable. And when justice and profit align, the world changes. The revolution had been quiet, bloodless, and devastatingly effective. It proved that sometimes The most powerful protest isn't a shout in the street, but a calm, clear voice in a boardroom, backed by the undeniable logic of a balance sheet. If this story of quiet power and strategic justice moved you, please share it. Subscribe to our channel for more true stories where dignity is defended and accountability is served. And if you have ever faced a situation where you were made to feel small, share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters. Your story has power. Let's continue to document the truth and demand the respect we all deserve.